California Senator Dianne Feinstein announced that she had been hospitalized for shingles, having been diagnosed the often painful and agonizing rash in February. At the time, the 89-year-old, who had already been facing questions about her cognitive health, said she expected to make a full recovery and return to work sometime later that month. Well, it's now May. Feinstein still has not returned to Washington, and there is no return date set.
Yeah, and so with more on her long recovery and other medical news that's making headlines this week, we are joined in-house, of course, by our resident medical expert, board-certified ER doctor, Michael Daignault. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Alex, this has political implications because she's not able to vote.
She's not able to vote. Democrats have not been able to confirm judges in the process. There are some folks that are calling on her to resign. That could grow, but what's the deal? How is it that she's still out? We know she's in San Francisco, and her doctors haven't cleared her to travel.
Well, although the office of the senator hasn't confirmed whether or not she was vaccinated or not, we know that in people over 85, there's a 50% chance of developing long-term neuropathy and chronic pain syndrome from shingles, and the senator, as we know, is 89. So that's one concern. The other concern is that the treatments themselves for the neuropathy can cause things like fatigue and dizziness, which would make a recovery much more difficult. So those two possibilities are very concerning. But we have to remember that the Shingrix vaccine for those over 50 is 90% plus effective at reducing the risk of infection. So we really want to inform our viewers that if you're over 50, it's really important to get that 2-dose vaccine.
What's the typical length that it would for an average person to recover from shingles?
So the acute symptoms, the painful rash, the nerve pain, a matter of weeks.
Okay.
But as you get older, the risk of long-term complications does increase exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, we've got a promising development in the battle against Alzheimer's. This follows an 18-month clinical trial. Eli Lilly, drug maker, says its experimental Alzheimer's drug appears to slow the progression of the mind-robbing disease by 35%. The company plans to apply for FDA approval this quarter. This disease has impacted so many families. How promising is this? What can they expect?
So that's 6 million Americans and their families that finally might have a breakthrough. I'm very excited about this drug. As you mentioned, that 30% reduced risk of progression of this awful disease. And what's interesting is for a long time, we've seen in the brains of patients with Alzheimer's the presence of amyloid plaques. And we've never known if that was just a correlation or if they were directly contributing to the progression of the disease itself. And what's cool about these new drugs is that they specifically target the amyloid plaque. And at the end of this trial, they showed that there was a reduction in the amount of plaque and improvement in the symptoms. So it sort of pulls back the shroud of mystery on this disease.
So when you say plaque, like we think of like plaque on our teeth, is it like sort of the same thing, that shouldn't be there?
Right, so amyloid plaque are abnormal cells that sort of crowd the neurons and around the neurons in our brain, and there's something else called tau proteins. They're neurofibrillary complexes, which just basically prevent the connections between the neurons, and it leads to the loss of memory, the decreased ability to think, the decreased ability to perform daily tasks.
Would you be surprised if the FDA didn't approve this?
I would be very surprised. I mean, This is one of 3 new drugs that are antibody infusions that target the plaques. And although there is some risk of brain swelling and bleeding, it was only about 1.6% had serious adverse effects. So the benefit definitely outweighs the risk. And I'm sure there are millions of patients and families across the country that are excited to see the FDA greenlight this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, 1 week from today, nationally, the public health emergency ends as it relates to COVID. Meanwhile, health officials are concerned about a new variant that has surfaced. It's an Omicron subvariant. It's known as Arcturus. And pink eye is a noted symptom with this. What do we need to know?
So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of anecdotal reports of XBB.1.16 causing pink eye. And so, you know, 2 things. I looked at the viral genome of this new variant, and there's only been a couple new mutations between this one and the previous one. So I doubt that those mutations which focus on the spike protein are suddenly going to give this virus a predilection to cause more pink eye. And so that being said, we know that conjunctivitis, or pink eye in general, has been a symptom associated with COVID as early as 2020, and it's a common symptom associated with a lot of viral infections. So I don't think it's much to worry about. Most patients with the pink eye will have resolution within 7 to 10 days.
So if somebody develops, though, pink eye right now, obviously test yourself to see if you have COVID, because you might. right?
Right. So there's a lot of viruses, like I mentioned, including
Right.
COVID, that could cause it. There's also seasonal allergies, and most of the country is in allergy season right now, too.
And then it's also important to point out before we let you go that this particular variant, it may be more contagious, but it's not producing more severe illness, and that's what we want.
100%. So this is still an Omicron family variant, and we haven't seen an increase in severe disease, hospitalizations, or death.
Great news there. Dr. Michael Daignault, our Fox 11 medical contributor. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.